Speaking of rumors, Steve, you want to take tag board here full. Earlier this week, the Titans' new general manager was asked what his plans were for the first pick, and Chad Brinker said, quote, "We won't pass on a generational talent with the first pick in the NFL draft," end quote. That could mean anything. Who knows what generational talent means in their mind? There's been some speculation after that quote came out that the only generational talent in terms of a draft prospect in this class is one Travis Hunter. So I'm curious if, in your guys' opinion, does this mean there could be a chance that both Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are on the board when the Browns are on the clock at number 2? Or is this simply GM smokescreen?
Yep.
Of course it's GM smokescreen.
That's exactly what it is.
By the way,
you know what it tells me? They're drafting Cam Ward.
Yeah, well, or at the very least, I don't know, but let's say you didn't want a quarterback and you wanted Travis Hunter. Well, you wouldn't want to tell the other teams that because you want somebody to trade up to 1.
That's exactly right.
I mean, it's just crazy. You want to convince the Giants to trade up.
You know, when I was early in my draft coverage, I used to say that why would the team at the top lie? They've got no reason to lie. They get whoever they want.
Right.
And then I think it was Rich McKay of the Bucks told me, well, no, they have more reason to lie than anybody.
Right.
Because you want the other 31 to not know what you're going to do.
That's right.
And these teams that state now, if it's Joe Burrow or if it's one of these players that's a generational talent,
right? That's
then
different.
There's no reason holding those cards.
Right.
You can say we know who we're going to take.
Yes,
and that's fine. But even in that case, there might be someone who wants him or needs him more, and you don't know what you might get. So I think, based on what Rich told me years ago, the team that has the most incentive to lie is the team that holds the number 1.
Right, because first of all, there's no chance they're taking Travis Hunter at 1. Because even if they've decided we got to get Travis Hunter, we don't like these quarterbacks. Well, they'll be the Giants will trade up. Let's say the Giants, for example, because the Giants right now they might be thinking, well, we can't get either of the top 2 quarterbacks.
Right.
We got to hop over the Browns. Well, if they really want Travis Hunter, they could trade down from 1 to 3, get something, and still get Travis Hunter most likely.
You have to. I think it's still too early to know how the league really views Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders.
I think we'll know after the combine.
Probably, and after you get through
the interviews,
the East-West game,
sure,
and in some of this stuff, because if they're not good enough, then you're not going to get anything for the number 1 or number 2 pick. Like it is possible to not take a quarterback number 1 overall. It has happened before.
It has.
Rare,
2 years ago.
It's very rare.
It just happened 2 years ago.
No, it has. It's happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
And that was the wrong call, by the way.
Well, I mean, I don't remember. Jacksonville was back-to-back years.
They took Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson.
They had
now it's blasphemy.
But anyway, that's beside the point. I'm just saying. I remember the Cavs being in that spot where they had a number 1 pick in a terrible draft, and they tried like hell to trade out of that spot.
Nobody wanted it.
And nobody wanted it.
That's much less likely to happen in football.
Agree. Agree.
Yeah.
Especially with quarterback.
I'm just saying, if the teams that, even the Browns at 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, look at these quarterbacks and say, nope, not worth going up to get them, what are you going to do?
Right.
You're right.
Then you're stuck.
I just think that's unlikely. So even if the Titans don't...
It only takes 1.
It only takes 1 team.
Right.
That's it.
So you're probably right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
It is possible. You're right. It's possible.
But, the adage is, how can you tell if a GM is lying and if his lips are moving?
Yeah.
Right.
Particularly when it comes to draft talk. These guys are masters at putting out the wrong information.
Yes.
I mean, some just choose to put out no information, but a lot of them actually engage in putting out misinformation.
Oh, yeah.
Breadcrumbs on a trail that they have
I've been lied to so many times.
Oh, it's insane.
So many times.
And, I've heard general managers say, yeah, just take everything you hear with a grain of salt. And what I do with it is I just dismiss it. And my favorite part is, it's never happened with me because I've never had that kind of relationship with a general manager, but I've talked to the guys at ESPN that are in with everybody. And they all know the way the game is played. But what's funny to me is, when the reporter knows they're being played, and they'll pull them aside and they'll say, "Look, this is off the record," which is my favorite thing.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, "There's not a quarterback in this draft that's worth taking or whatever." And the reporter is looking at the general manager, knowing that he's going to use him as a mouthpiece to put people off the wrong trail, and so the game is really a funny game right now. But I just say, everything that you hear between now and draft day, dismiss it.
That's right.
No one is going to tell you what they want to do or what they're going to. Look at yesterday, Tommy Rees. He didn't use a name of a player that's in the draft. That I
No,
heard.
he said nothing.
No.
Said nothing.
Him and Kevin will get along fine.
Oh, he's going to fit in great here.
The only
He talked for 40 minutes, and when he was done, I'm like, I think I know less than I did when he started.
The only thing we learned is that for sure is that Kevin was going to call plays. That was it.
Right.
Which I think everybody felt was the direction we were leaning anyhow.
But I brought this up yesterday. Not that we need to. I know you guys weren't here, but I just thought it was interesting dynamic compared to last year when it took forever before they announced it.
Well,
and
training
this
camp.
year it was right away.
Yeah, I know that we probably did do this yesterday.
Yeah.
I wasn't here. I'm curious to get both of your thoughts on this. I loved the way Kevin Stefanski handled yesterday.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm calling plays, and maybe I'll change my mind, and that's it. And
Yeah.
then as he was leaving, he was asked a question, and he came back and said, no.
Yeah, he said, "Can we ask you something?"
Can we ask you something about?
I got one question. Nope. And got up and
No.
left.
So
He
here's
was-
what
he was joking.
I
But
know
not
he
really.
was, but I'm going to read between the lines here, okay? I feel that what's going on behind closed doors in Berea was that Kevin got sick and tired of taking darts on his reputation for things he didn't decide and things that were out of his control. I feel like the Kevin Stefanski we're going to get in 2025 is a less kinder, less gentler, more in charge head coach. I feel like what yesterday was to me was, I'm calling plays. It's my team now.
This is my show.
Yeah,
It's my show.
I mean, it's
and
just-
if I'm going to be fired, I'm going to be fired on my decisions.
It's the latest example. His post-season press conference felt that way too.
I
And
agree.
That's the reason I changed my mind ultimately about wanting to stick with him.
I
Keeping
mean,
him.
Yeah.
They fired Ken Dorsey and Andy Dickerson an hour and a half after the
Yes.
season ended, basically.
Yes.
And they're going back to the wide zone that he loves. Tommy is a really highly thought of coordinator who there was a lot of interest in him around the league. He's going to fall right in line with what Kevin wants to operate this. This is going to be the Kevin
Yeah.
Stefanski offense from top to bottom.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
I
okay
think
with
we
that.
all are. That's
now,
what
if Stefanski watches? I don't know if they think Will Howard is. Will Howard probably won't raise to this level, but I do think that, and I've talked to some other people that agree with this, that he's put himself in the first round, late in the first round, early in the second round. The one thing that I look at Will Howard that he does and does at an NFL level already is the play fake. He is a tremendous play faker.
I heard,
And I wonder if that will influence Kevin Stefanski. He's big. He's got the NFL size. He can run very well for someone his size.
I did hear, it was really interesting. I don't remember where I heard this yesterday, but I did hear a guy who used to be a coach or he was a scout in the NFL, and now he does like NFL draft stuff. I don't remember his name, but he said that Will Howard's athleticism will not translate to the NFL.
No. I don't think
That
it will.
he-
He won't be able to run like that in the NFL.
He said, well, I didn't, I don't follow it close enough, but he said Kyle McCord will be drafted before Will Howard.
Interesting.
I don't see that happening.
It's so early. All the guys,
Yeah,
they're
but
way
I
over
just-
the board, and
I'm not gonna
crazy.
pretend to be an NFL draft.
I'm certainly not
No.
never pretending. to be,
Here's
yeah.
what I would say about Will Howard. He had an unbelievable 4-game run against top competition. Those were the Blue Bloods. And he played great.
in clutch moments.
Yes. But if you look at the body of work, the entire body of work, if you go back to the first Penn State game, and he had some throws that were just like, what are you looking at?
Right.
And that's what concerns me. If you want to take this to the Browns, Kevin's big thing is ball security.
It is.
And he got fooled. Will got fooled on some throws and some coverages that I thought early on were like, oh my God. And again, he got better as it went. But I thought he was awful at the end of the Oregon game on the road. I thought his clock management was terrible. He basically ran out of time.
Well, he
at the
cost
end.
them the game, really, basically, with his clock management.
So you have to look at the entire. My thing
Right.
keeps popping
You
up.
have to factor in also that he's got absurd talent around him at Ohio.
He does.
Yes.
So
But he was playing absurd talent in all four of those final games.
He was. And
He
you
was
should
playing elite NFL. A lot of guys are going to be drafted off those teams.
Absolutely. And I mean, you should have absurd talent around you in the NFL too. You should.
Let me ask you guys this real quick, and then we can move on to the Guardians. But assuming, and we're all in agreement, it's smokescreen. We're not reading anything too much into it. But let's just say this new Titans general manager is the first honest-to-goodness general manager in the history of sports.
To be honest.
And what he said is truth, and they end up taking Travis Hunter. Could the Browns be in a better position 2 then with their choice of quarterback on the board, then they would be in that
Well, of
ridiculous
course,
granted
of course,
instance.
Yeah, of course, because there's 2 there, not 1.
Yeah.
If they take a quarterback, then the dilemma becomes, what if Tennessee takes the guy that the Browns were convinced was their guy?
Right.
Then the mistake you can make is just taking the other one because you need one. And
That's
that
true.
would be, I think that could be a disaster.
If Tennessee passes on a quarterback at 1 and takes a non-quarterback position, I think that tells you, because my first reaction is going to be, well, it just strengthens the trade value of 2. But it really doesn't, because if Tennessee could trade out of 1, they would.
I think you're right.
So I don't know that it really, other than the fact that if the Browns really love Cam Ward and they're convinced Tennessee was going to take him, they didn't take him, and now he's there for them to take. I don't know that it really changes their thoughts at 2, because if Tennessee could trade 1, they would trade 1. So if Tennessee stays at 1 and takes a non-quarterback, that tells you obviously they don't like those quarterbacks, and there wasn't that much value in that pick.
It also tells you that the Browns don't like or all the other teams don't, or they
The
would have
teams
moved
below
up to
them.
get them.
The teams below them, yeah.
I don't
That's
know
what I'm
that-
saying. I
don't know it necessarily means the Browns don't like him, but other teams weren't interested in trading
moving up.
or weren't willing to give enough to
and
trade
that
up.
and that happens. Again, I'll go back to Cavs. I remember conversations the year of the Anthony Bennett draft,
Yeah.
and how much they hated that draft. And I'm not saying that this is.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
There ended up being a superstar in that draft.
Giannis,
right?
but it was-
Giannis, right? Yeah.
But there was and they tried like hell to trade out of that spot, and there was no
Yeah.
value. There was no one willing to come.
I don't know on the comparison of that draft to this NFL draft, but everybody that follows the draft and covers the draft for a living will tell you that this is a below average NFL draft, particularly at quarterback. And that, it's luck so often. When you have the 1 or 2, what's available when you have it? The year the Bengals had it, it was a slam dunk,
Yep.
no-brainer. There's your franchise guy for the next 15 years.
Yep.
And
There was some people debating at the time.
Yeah, but
with Herbert and Tua.
I just thought-
for me it seemed like a no-brainer.
for me it did too,
yeah.
and for the Bengals it did, and I think they
Yeah.
made the right choice.
Sure.
Going back, I'm throw a number you want, 10 years, whatever, last 10, 15 drafts. There is still at least one franchise quarterback in every draft.
Not every,
even the worst
but
ones.
almost every.
Pretty much, because I went back, the one that jumped out to me was the Kenny Pickett year, and I told you Brock Purdy was in that.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean,
There is one. There was one year that there wasn't anybody. I think.
I don't
But
know.
Almost
But
every year.
Almost every year. And you're not
I
always
gotta
going to
look it up
find
now.
him at 1-1.
Unfortunately
or
for
at
the
1-2.
Browns, this might be a year where there isn't.
And it may be the 7th guy off the board, and a team just ran into one and got lucky.
Could be Kyle McCord.
But
it
there's
could be Will Howard.
you
Who
never
knows?
know. Yeah.
I mean, nobody was saying about Brock Purdy at Mr. Irrelevant,
No.
last pick in the draft,
Of course not.
that he was going to change lives in San Francisco.
No.
By the way, Bernie said something to me. I had lunch with him last week. He said something very interesting about Brock Purdy, which is concerning. He had the same operation procedure on his elbow that Brock Purdy had. And Bernie's really concerned about Brock Purdy's career trajectory moving forward because of it.
Wow.
He told me something that was fascinating. He said the throws that I could make, he said if the best throw I could make was scored at 100, after the surgery, the best throw I could make was a 94. And he said, here's the difference. It sounds like, well, that's not bad. But he said the difference between 100 and a 94 in the NFL is a lot more picks,
Absolutely.
a lot more incompletions, and you're just not the same guy. And he said, I'm not predicting that Brock Purdy has peaked, but I'm going to be really impressed if he gets back to the level that he was because the procedure he had is such a bad procedure.
But I mean, Bernie's would have been, 30 years ago? I wonder if the technology has changed.
Maybe.
And-
But when you watched Purdy this year, now granted, he was without a lot of weapons.
Yeah.
I was seeing things in Brock Purdy that I hadn't seen in his rookie year.
Yeah.
Now let me give it. So since 2016, there's been at least one good quarterback in each draft.
Okay.
Since, before that, there were a couple of years there were not, but in the last 10,
That's 9-10
since
years.
16.
Yeah.
However, there are 2 years that you could question how good is
Who
the
was
best
the
quarterback.
best in those years? The guy that you would say was the best quarterback that came
in
out.
all those years?
Yeah.
Well, let me
in
give
the
you,
2 that you say were no good.
So in 2016, you had Jared Goff was the best. Jared Goff or Dak Prescott, both good.
Yeah.
Right. 2016. 2017, you had Mahomes. 2018, we would have said Deshaun Watson a few
Well,
years
there were a
ago.
lot in 18, right?
18, obviously.
Josh Allen,
Darnold's
Lamar.
back in the mix, Baker, and certainly Josh Allen and Lamar. Here's the one that, 2019, the only good quarterback 2019 is Kyler Murray. Is he a franchise quarterback? They paid him like one.
He has moments where he is, but he has other moments where
I think
He had a great year. This year
he
had a
did.
great
He
year.
bounced back
Great's a little
nicely.
strong.
He's pretty good.
Compared to where he was.
I don't know that I would want him to be my quarterback.
Yeah.
But
2020, obviously, Burrow, Herbert.
Sure.
2021, this is the biggest question mark. The only good quarterback out of 2021 is Trevor Lawrence. And I don't know. I mean, he's trending in the wrong direction. I'll still give him a chance. The next best is
God, he
in
had
that draft
that great
is Justin
year a couple
Fields.
of years ago and then just fell flat.
And then obviously, so I would say Trevor Lawrence is the worst number one quarterback of any draft for the last 10 years.
and he went 1-1.
And he went 1-1.
he did.
And he's still, I'm not writing him off yet, but it's not looking great.
One interesting thing, Ben Johnson mentioned this at his introductory press conference. I don't know if you guys caught it. A couple people clipped this and put it on Twitter. He said, quarterback success is a better predictor for wins and losses now than turnover ratio. Turnover ratio was the standard.
Used to be If you win the turnover margin, and the top teams in the turnover ratio always are the top teams in the NFL.
And now it's QB success. Well, how do you measure QB success? There's a million different ways.
Well, one of the ways you measure it is turnover ratio. The two are tied.
But so I reached out to my guy at True Media who pulls all kinds of incredible numbers for me, and I don't have them off at hand. But basically, I'll probably write about this in a few days. Basically, he said, wow, Ben Johnson's exactly right. And if you go to like EPA per dropback, and we're going to get in the nitty gritty here for a second, but expected points added per dropback when the quarterback has the ball in his hands. If you have a positive EPA per dropback, it is more predictive of winning than if you turn the ball over. So you could turn the ball over, but as long as you still have a positive EPA, you're still going. And in the playoffs, it's even higher. The percentage is even higher.
Right.
And so I was like, and we were talking about like, all right, so what does that mean to you? And he said, well, to me, it means you can't win anymore with a game manager and elite defense. Like more than ever, you've got to have elite quarterback play. Yeah. And maybe that's and
part of that
but the numbers really
it's not
bear that
sustainable, right? Like the way the Browns won last year with terrible quarterback play was not sustainable.
Yeah.
You can't win. Teams there'll be anomalies where you'll see a team get to the playoffs.
Well, Philly's 2 wins away from winning a Super Bowl, and they're doing it because they've got the best running game in the NFL.
I still think Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback.
I like
in my
Hurts,
opinion.
yeah.
Hurts is a fine quarterback. He's a serviceable quarterback. But I'm going to put him more in, not a game manager.
No.
But I'm not going to put him in.
I mean, he's not in the top 4 guys that we talk about all the time.
No.
No.
But
He may be in the top 10,
But
I think
he's
he would
in the
be
second group, maybe
Agreed.
the end of the second
I
group.
I think he's around 10, 12.
Yeah, right, somewhere around there.
And for me,
Can you win with those guys?
I don't think.
And
I
you know
think
what? We'll find out in 3 weeks.
I think you can't. Like, I think the top 4 are different. I think in that next group, 5 through. And by the way, if Jaden Daniels does it again next year, he's going to move into that top group. But I think guys 5 through 12, or wherever that line happens to be, it might be different by year. I think you can win with those guys, but the team around them's got to be really good. And then after that, I don't think you can win below that.
Did you guys hear the stat on Jaden Daniels that Aaron Andrews gave before the Lions game?
No.
I didn't look this up. I wanted to. It would be a little difficult to track down, but I'm trusting that they got it right. They've got a huge research staff.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe this stat. She said Jaden Daniels, in his rookie season, has more no punt, no turnover games than Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, and Patrick Mahomes combined for their careers.
Well,
I gave you that stat when they played the Browns. He had beaten those guys in week 3 of the season.
that's almost incredible.
Actually, I don't think it's that surprising because Washington goes for it on 4th down
there are a lot of
and
reasons
Montana
for it.
and Manning never did that.
Well, there's a lot of reasons for it, but you're talking about 40-plus years of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, and this dude has done it in 1 season.
Yeah.
I think it is meaningful compared to Mahomes because he's playing in this era.
That's
Apples
why
to apples.
Montana's a little different.
But you know what? Even Andy Reid doesn't go for it on 4th down like
they
like
don't.
Campbell or like
but they
like
still
Quinn
go
does.
for it on 4th down.
They do.
More than teams when Montana played.
So I call that's a perfect game. That's how a quarterback, there's no perfect game really. Like you can complete all of your passes. To me, a perfect game by a quarterback is that stat. You don't turn it over and you don't punt. You're going to win those games.
Well, hang on. Think about that. Just because you don't punt, if you go for it and I know the Commanders were excellent on fourth down.
Right.
But if you go for it on fourth down and you don't make it, that should count as a turnover. That's a turnover.
It depends on
And
where it is on the field.
And that doesn't take in that stat you just said doesn't take into account how many times they went for it on fourth down and didn't.
But here's the problem. Guys aren't going for it when it's more than 4th and 4.
Of course.
Okay, they're going to punt on
but
4th and 4 because that's the line.
If you go on 4th and 2 and you don't get it, to me,
I get what you're
that
saying,
should count
Jason.
in the
In
stats.
a way it is.
That should be a turnover.
Yeah, but what if it's on the 30-yard line?
Doesn't matter. It's a
I
turnover.
mean, it could be a turnover at the 30-yard line, too.
Technically, it's not counted as a turnover. I get your point.
It should.
Yeah.
You can argue
I've
that
always
it is.
thought that.
I'm wondering how many times they even did that. I
Yeah.
think their conversion rate on fourth
There-
down was
it's
number 1 in the
excellent.
And what's
NFL.
was
interesting, too,
excellent.
is it's not like they had an incredible running game. I mean, their running backs are fine. Brian Robinson's a good player, but, like, they don't have a Saquon Barkley there.
No, but I'd imagine a lot of their fourth down conversions
Were him
running.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
He's like he's unbelievable.
If they win, he's the first rookie to ever start a Super Bowl at quarterback.